Hello to all and welcome to my second Should You Get of patch 1.59, also known as Flaming Arrows. Now, you might be a little bit confused at this point in time, because you might be thinking to yourself, why on your screens now does there appear to be some kind of whale that has wings attached to it? But this in fact is not any kind of sea creature, as it is the B-18a, what is probably the ugliest aircraft I've ever seen in my entire life. Ever. Like, my god, look at this thing. It's just wrong on every level. It just looks ridiculous. Ugh. But anyway, that aside, it's time to get on to the review and to see whether you should get this aircraft or not. Now then, the whale is part of the Cetacea family and is a large marine mammal which lives in the ocean. It, like other mammals, breathes oxygen from the air. It is also warm-blooded and actually has a small amount of hair. Its diet mainly consists of things like plankton and krill, which are things that are often found floating in the ocean, and oh, wait a minute. Wait. I do apologise. Sorry, I got mistaken. This isn't a whale at all, this is an aircraft. Sorry everyone. Sorry, I'll try that again. Now, a singular calf is born every 2 to 3 years, however the gestation period can take up to a year, and oh damn it, I got it wrong again! Oh god, it's so hard, you know. I mean, it looks so much like a whale, and it just looks ridiculous, and who approved this design? Who looked at this design and said, yeah, that looks like the stupidest thing I've ever seen, gotta approve that, I'm allowing that to join our Air Force. I mean, ugh. That being said, now I'm looking at it, I think it actually looks more like a shark than it does a whale. Yeah, it does as well. Oh well, I've already made the joke about whales and I put too much effort in to go back and change it all now. So you're gonna have to deal with it being to do with whales, Buster. But all jokes aside, I'll actually do it seriously now, okay? Okay. Now the B-18, got it better this time, is a medium bomber that was first flown in April 1935 and was introduced to the United States Air Force in 1936. It was designed to replace the B-10, which I'm not even going to talk about the looks of that thing. But looks aside, the B-10 was revolutionary for its time, pioneering such things such as being an all-metal monoplane airframe, with a closed cockpit, rotating gun turrets, retractable landing gear, internal bomb bay, and full engine cowling. These things would of course become the norm soon after, but this was the first ever bomber to do all of those things. Meaning that the B-18 had quite a legacy to live up to. Which, as any of us who have successful brothers or sisters will know, is a hard thing to do, and indeed it didn't offer much in the way of pioneering. The only thing it really offered was a electric-powered frontal nose turret, which never caught on unfortunately. The biggest problem with the B-18 was the fact that it was based on the DC-2 design, a passenger and military transport plane, which, for obvious reasons, was never designed for frontline combat, and this is where the main problems of the B-18 lie. You see, because despite the fact this aircraft was only introduced into the American Air Force in 1936, by 1940 it was considered underpowered and in fact quite obsolete in a main bombing role. The biggest problems with it being the fact that it had inadequate defensive armament and its bomb load was far too small for the tasks it was required to do. But even when it was being introduced in 1936, it was still not the main choice of the US Air Force. At this point in time, the Boeing B-17 prototypes were just coming out, and if it wasn't for the crash of one of the B-17 prototypes, caused by taking off with the controls still locked, it was removed from consideration and the B-18 was the only choice they had. Not to mention, during this time was the Great Depression, and when prices for aircraft was lower, meaning that it was put into immediate production in January 1936 as the B-18. But of what value were the B-18s to the Second World War then, if they were considered obsolete by 1940? And well, they didn't have much of a role. Many of them were destroyed during the attacks of Pearl Harbor and the Philippines in December 1941. In 1942, the B-18 survivors were relegated to anti-submarine or transport duties. However, it's not all doom and gloom for the B-18, as the B-18 was one of the first American aircraft to sink a German U-boat on August 1942 in the Caribbean. So hey, it actually did something. Who knew? But overall in the Second World War, it became quickly apparent that it was bad at just about every one of its roles. Despite the fact it was designed as a long-range bomber, it couldn't do anything. It wasn't particularly fast, it didn't have a particularly impressive bomb load, it didn't have a very good range, and, as I've already mentioned, its defensive armour and armament was a joke by this point, meaning that it was basically completely useless. In fact, one of the only reasons why this aircraft even saw bombing duties during the Second World War was simply as more of a stopgap. It was meant to span the gap between the start of the war and until better aircraft could take its place, such as the B-25s, the B-17s, and so on. So surely this aircraft is going to be really bad in War Thunder, right? I mean, at the start of the Second World War, it was completely obsolete and absolutely useless then, so surely in a main bombing role in War Thunder, it's gonna be completely useless, right? Well, I'm here to say that if you were one of these people who actually thought this aircraft would be bad in War Thunder, then you will be amazed, nay, absolutely mesmerised by how absolutely correct you were, because this aircraft is absolutely terrible. I mean, where do I even start with this monstrosity? Well, I guess I could talk about probably the worst part of it, which is its turrets. Now, this aircraft only has 3 turrets, one dorsal turret, one turret out to the rear which fires downwards and slightly behind the aircraft, and one nose turret. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the nose turret's actually alright. It's actually pretty good and pretty standard for its tier and battle rating, so I've got nothing against that. However, the other 2 turrets are absolutely useless. The dorsal turret and the other bottom rear turret offer a massive dead zone behind the aircraft, meaning that if you fly slightly below and behind this aircraft, the gunners are completely incapable of shooting you, meaning the only way to keep shooting a target if they're in this position is to keep dipping down so then your dorsal turret can fire at them. This is what you'll be seeing me do a lot in these videos because it's literally the only way to shoot people, and it's really annoying. As for the actual guns on this aircraft, you're looking at 3 7.62 Browning machine guns, which for a 2.0 battle rating is absolutely abysmal. Once again, one 7.62mm gun in the front is okay, but as for a dorsal turret and a bottom rear gunner, it's really, really bad, and you can see that even against biplanes with a fully upgraded turret and using armor-piercing rounds, I can't do anything against them. In my entire time of flying this aircraft, and keep in mind I have aced this aircraft, I have got altogether 2 kills. 2 kills. And technically, I died both times to get said kills, so I'm pretty much not even, I haven't played one game where I've got a kill and survived. So this aircraft is just absolutely terribly armed. As for armour, there isn't any. At all. There is absolutely no armour in this aircraft whatsoever, which I'm not entirely sure if that's historically accurate or not, but this is still an early version of the aircraft, so maybe armour will be patched into it as the game goes on, but at this current point in time it has no armour whatsoever, so once again, really bad on that front. But surely this aircraft will make up for it on bombing load, right? Well, no, not at all actually. Because you see, this aircraft has a maximum of £2,000, which is actually not that bad for its battle rating or tier, right? However, it is still not as good as the PBY, which is the first bomber in the American tree, which has £4,000 maximum payload. So this aircraft has half the payload as the PBY. Not to mention, the PBY actually is a lot better armed and actually has armour. So, altogether, this aircraft isn't looking too hopeful. So this aircraft can't defend itself, and it can't attack, or at least not as well as aircraft before it. So, surely there's something about it that's good? Maybe the speed of it, perhaps? And, well, it's a sort of yes and a no for that one. Yes, this aircraft is faster than the PBY, but for its battle rating and tier, it is still very slow, coming in at only 233 miles an hour for a max speed, which is one of the slowest tier 1 bombers in the game. And speaking of slow, have you seen how fast the gear move on this thing? Jesus Christ! I mean, it is so slow to take the gear in and out that I'm pretty sure it would be faster for the pilot to get out of the aircraft, run down the wing, manually grab the gear and pull it out himself, and then get back in the aircraft. I mean, it is so unbearably slow that I would not be surprised if this was the slowest gear in the game. And you might be saying that's a pretty petty thing to bring up. I mean, who cares about how fast gear moves? But I tell you one thing, you will care when it takes, and I timed this, 35 seconds to put up your gear or to take it out. But despite everything I've said, there is actually one thing this aircraft has that is better than most other medium to heavy bombers in the game. I know, hold the presses, this is going to be amazing, right? And it's probably the most useless stat you could possibly imagine for a medium to heavy bomber to have, but it is its turn time, with 21 seconds when aced, which, although that's what the stat card says, and as we all know, stat cards are very debatable on this game, but I actually will root for it on this one, because it is very fast at turning. So there you go. If you've ever thought that you want a medium bomber that's bad at literally everything, but can turn about as well as quite a lot of fighters in the game, then this is the aircraft for you. Okay, so it's good at turning, but what else is it good at? Other things that are good about the B-18. Oh, I know! It has a very low takeoff and stall speed. Yes, you see, this aircraft with full bomb load can take off at only around 80 miles an hour, and also its stall speed is around the same level, so that's alright, I suppose. And one final thing I didn't mention about this aircraft is actually that it's quite durable. Believe it or not, this aircraft can soak hits really well and is quite rugged, to be fair. So, although you won't be able to shoot back at your enemies, at the very least it'll take them a while before they shoot you down. But onto the game you can see behind you, and I have just done probably one of the most impressive things ever, especially with a bomber as crap as this one. I have just made it over this entire map, which is pretty big a map to be honest with you, with an aircraft with only one engine, or well, sort of 1.5 really, but as you can see it just died on me, and I'm slowly losing altitude because this aircraft can't even fly on one engine, even with no bomb load. And as I'm coming in now, I'm actually going to try and land at around like a 70-degree angle on a runway, which is probably not a smart thing to do, but screw it, at this point this aircraft is barely even flying. It's basically not flying really, it's just a massive glider. But oh my god, I'm actually using it to its advantages and using that low stall speed to come in at a nice slow speed. And yes, I actually landed. So from all that flying and all that work, I actually managed to get back to base with a critically damaged B-18 and get a soft landing, which I find, I have to admit, I'm really impressed with. And yeah. So, it's time to answer the question on everyone's lips, which is, should you get the B-18a? No. No, not at all. It's terrible. It's honestly just awful. It can't defend itself. It has a terrible bomb load. It's not very fast. It's just bad in every way, and honestly, it was an absolute pain to fly. And yeah, why is this even a 2.0 battle rating? Like, seriously, why is this a 2.0? Like, this aircraft deserves to be at a 1.5, maybe even a 1.3. It's just terrible, and is completely underpowered in this game. So, yeah, if you're using American bombers, just stick with the PBY. It's better in every way, well, almost every way. And, yeah, just ignore this entirely. It is a complete waste of your time. But I mean, what were you expecting, really? I mean, if you add wings to any kind of sea creature and send it out to battle, it's inevitably not going to do very well, is it? So really, America should have seen that one coming. Well, that's all from me for today, and in case you want to know what happens in this game, basically I'm just going to fly forward to those enemies and inevitably get shot down because, well, this aircraft is awful. So, if you like what you saw, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and until next time I say thank you very much, and I'll see you then.